Now, before I begin, I just want to apologize about the way I sound. I'm getting over a small chest cold, so it's making me sound really weird. But I want to answer a question that I keep getting on my original Galaxy S23 review. Should you buy the S23 or should you buy the Pixel 7? And it's a great question because the Pixel 7 retails for $499 USD, whereas the Galaxy S23 retails for $799. That's a $300 difference. Are you really getting $300 more of a phone if you buy the Galaxy S23? And it really depends on your situation. Like from a design standpoint, you just can't beat the smaller form factor of the S23. If that's what you're going for, the S23 feels like a true small phone, whereas the Pixel 7 is a little bit on the bigger side. Now, personally, I prefer 6.3-inch displays, which is exactly what the Pixel 7 has. So for me, this is the right size. But for others, if you want like a true one-handable phone, then you're gonna gravitate towards the Galaxy S23. Now, design-wise, they're very different. Like if I see someone holding a Pixel, I know it's a Pixel right away because it just looks so different. It has this massive visor on the back, it's a chunkier phone, it sticks out with its unique colors. The Galaxy device, I gotta take a couple looks. I gotta dodge and weave, right? Because it just looks so similar to other Android phones on the market that you have to kind of like pay attention to really notice it. Now, granted, this is not a big deal. Most of us use cases on their phone, but it's kind of cool that Google's trying to be different. They have their button placements in very similar positions, like the Galaxy has the volume rocker at the top and the power button below, and then the Pixel 7 has it flipped. I personally prefer the button layout on the Galaxy device. My finger rests naturally on the power button, then I can move it up if I want to change the volume, but it's really not a big deal. I do appreciate the fact that the Pixel does put the SIM tray on the side of the body. I can't tell you how many times me being a meathead accidentally stuck a SIM tool into the microphone port rather than the hole on the SIM tray. So if you do put your SIM card in here, pay attention because I know tons of people who have stuck their little thingy in the wrong hole. But the feel of these phones are very different. Even though both phones are rocking glass backs, you do have a more durable Victus glass on the Galaxy S23. Because it has more of a matte frosted finish, it's a little bit less slippery. And the overall feel of a smaller phone is just easier to grip in the hand, so you're less likely to drop it. This feels a bit more on the slippery side. Like I'd be more willing to use a case with this than I would with the Galaxy S23. But here's the thing, when it comes to the fingerprint scanner, the Pixel 7 is an improvement from the Pixel 6, but I still don't find it to be as consistent as the Galaxy S23. It's faster on the Pixel, like if I'm just trying to log in and they both pick it up correctly, the Pixel 7 is faster. But every so often, I'll find that I have to like really push the Pixel 7 more than once for my finger to register, and sometimes that can be a bit annoying. So with the Pixel 7, I find that I prefer to use the fingerprint scanner, but also have Face ID activated as a backup. Now, both displays are OLED, but they're a bit different. They are 1080p, they do both have high refresh rates, but it's only 90 Hertz on the Pixel compared to 120 on the Galaxy S23. Is this a big deal? No. It's not that big of a deal. It's not like using a 60 Hertz display, which I can't use anymore. 90 Hertz is fine. Yes, I do notice the difference between 90 and 120, but it's a small difference, a very tiny difference to the point where it doesn't really affect my use of either of these devices. You do get a brighter display on the Galaxy S23. It goes up to 1750 nits of peak brightness compared to 1400 on the Pixel. I do also like the look of the display on the Galaxy device. You have less bezel around it, but the front-facing cameras are a bit different. Even though they're both punch hole cameras in the middle of the display, you get a 12 megapixel sensor on the Galaxy device compared to a 10.8 sensor on the Pixel. They both can shoot wide if you want to, but for the most part, the Pixel takes better photos. In fact, this is probably the best phone, at least for my nasty ass skin tones, that do the best jobs for taking selfies. If that's your thing, I find that the skin tones look the best on the Pixel. It also does a really good job of trying to be very equal among different skin colors, whereas on the Galaxy devices, it always tended to make my skin look way too yellow. Okay, so right now you're looking at the Samsung Galaxy S23 versus the Pixel 7. You guys gotta let me know which one looks better. Obviously, which one has the better sound, and overall, which one you prefer the most. Let me know in the comments below. Speaking of tough times, charging. You know, like the Pixel can only charge up to 20 watts compared to 25 on the Galaxy S23. And by no means are any of these the fastest charging phones on the market. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter to me, but I know a lot of you guys out there that really love fast charging. So none of these devices can do it super fast. Obviously, they both support wireless charging, and battery life is actually very interesting because even though the Pixel has a bigger 4300 milliamp hour battery compared to 3900 in the Galaxy S23, I found that battery life was very equal between both of these devices. Depending on the type of user you are, you can get anywhere from 5 to 7 hours of screen on time. 7 if you're super light with the phone, 6.5 if you're a medium user, 5 hours if you're super heavy. As for performance, this is where things get very interesting. Look, if you don't play a lot of games and you use your phone like most people, which is just to browse the net, use social media, send out emails, text message, take pictures, they're both really fast phones. Like they both feel nice and fluid. Like, don't get me wrong, there's moments where I'm scrolling on the Galaxy device and it feels super fast, whereas sometimes on the Pixel, they'll be like a little tiny, and this happens every so often, a micro stutter. But overall, the fluid experience on these devices are great. Now, if you're a hardcore gamer and you're trying to compete for the World Championship in PUBG, then yeah, you're gonna want a Galaxy S23. It has the faster processor, it's way faster than what the Pixel currently provides. But everything is not about speed anymore because hardware is so good now that the processor you got yesterday still feels just as fast today. What really matters is the actual experience. And the software on both of these phones feel good. I have nothing really big to complain about with Samsung's One UI 5.1. It's a fantastic software experience. You know, you can download GoodLock, really customize it. There's a lot of features inside of its menus that allow you to do things that other phones can't. But to me personally, and again, this is subjective and only me, I like the Pixel software better. I think it looks cleaner. I think it just makes a lot more sense. I like the design elements better. I also love the extra software features that Google provides. Like for example, you have call screening, you have on-device speech-to-text translation, which has some of the best accuracy I've ever seen on a phone, period. And if you're really into using voice assistant, nothing does it better than a Pixel device. But here's the weird thing. With the Pixel phone, you only get 3 years of updates compared to 4 years of OS updates on the Galaxy device plus 5 years of security. You would think Google, being the company that creates Android, would give you the longest years of updates. Now, the benefit of getting the Pixel though is you do get updates right away. Like as soon as Android is released, you can download it on your phone. Whereas with the Galaxy device, you have to wait for Samsung to release an update. And they tend to get slower and slower to release that update for your phone as the age of your phone increases. The cameras on these devices are kind of a hot topic because it really comes down to personal preference. They're both rocking 50 megapixel wide lenses. They both have a 12 megapixel ultra wide lens. The only difference is that the Galaxy device gets a 10 megapixel telephoto lens. You can optically zoom up to 3 times. Now you can zoom up to 2 times on the Pixel 7, but it's not using a telephoto lens. It's just cropping the main wide sensor to get a bit closer. But the picture preference will depend on your style. I like the Pixel better. I think overall it takes better pictures. But straight out of the camera without any editing, the Galaxy device does really well too. It tends to make photos look a bit more poppy. There's more vibrance. It's a little bit brighter, so straight ready to upload to social media. Whereas the Pixel device is contrastier, a tiny bit warmer. It feels more realistic, like what I'm actually looking at. There's really no wrong answer here. You either love one look over the other or vice versa, but they both take fantastic photos during the day. I will say though, and I've said this in my other reviews, that the Galaxy S23 tends to have a little bit of inconsistency when it comes to properly getting the white balance right indoors, or when lights are going crazy, it tends to be a bit too yellow or green, depending on the situation, whereas the Pixel 7 just did a better job of nailing the white balance. Nighttime photography is a little bit closer, like they both take great photos, but again, I find that the Pixel 7 does it better with the white balance, especially when you're in situations with a lot of random lighting. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of situations where the Galaxy S23 just did a much better job exposing the scene. But the thing with the S23 at nighttime, which I truly hate, is the fact that it really smooths out the image. Like everything looks like an oil painting, and I don't like that. Because when you do stuff like that, it just makes everything look mushy and you start to lose detail. Like even in some photos, you look at the ground, the Pixel 7 just shows more information, and I think that's very important. But I will say though that sometimes the Pixel 7 tends to make nighttime look a bit too bright. So they trade blows, but overall they're pretty close. Now, if you plan on shooting mostly video, the Galaxy device can shoot up to 8K, whereas the Pixel 7 can only do 4K. Now, for most people, that's really not big of a deal, but if you had to choose the quality of the video, I'd still lean towards the Galaxy S23. It just does a really good job of shooting video overall. Don't get me wrong, the Pixel has come a long way. Way better than the Pixel 6 and the earlier models, but the Galaxy S23 is still slightly better. So back to the big question, should you buy the Pixel 7 or the Galaxy S23? Look, the Galaxy S23 was the better phone in most of these areas. Everything from the display to the extra camera sensor to faster charging, the list goes on. But collectively, all those little things I don't think are worth $300 more than the Pixel 7, because the Pixel 7 has its own top features that the S23 doesn't have. I think if you're someone looking at these two devices and you don't mind having a slightly bigger phone, you should 10 out of 10 go for the Pixel 7 each and every time. Now, I'm not dismissing the Galaxy S23. This phone is absolutely incredible. And I think if you're someone who wants like the best that you can get in a smaller device because you want it to be as one-handable as possible, or you really gonna keep this phone for 4 to 5 years so those software updates really make a difference, then yeah, maybe spend the extra $300 and get the Galaxy S23. But it's crazy how good this phone is for the price, and it's hard for me to recommend something so much more expensive, especially now when things are tight. Like save that $300, use it for something worth it, you know, like some eggs, because eggs are expensive. That's what I would do. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.